The best thing about being a bookseller is definitely spending time with your customers and spending time finding the right book for the right person. So I mean, it's that magic of never knowing what's going to happen on any given day. Somebody could walk in the door, they could ask for something very straightforward. They could ask for something that in 9 years of doing it you've never come across. They could need something that's important, they could need something that's fun, it could be anything. So it's that kind of not knowing what's going to happen and then just talking to your customers about that book and about books generally, and maybe finding them a book that's just going to be, you know, the best one they've read in ages. I think I'm right in saying that our best-selling book ever is a book called The Missing by Tim Gautreaux. That's a book that we championed back in sort of 2010 when it first came out in paperback. It's a deep South Louisiana novel, got an amazing sense of place, amazing sense of time because it's set during Prohibition. And I think we sold so many because it just hadn't sold hugely elsewhere, and we just kept getting amazing feedback from customers about it, so we carried on recommending it. And then last year when we set up our own very small kind of publishing company, we ended up publishing a different one of Tim Gautreaux's novels, so it's funny how these things kind of lead you on to other things. So we set up a small publishing outfit last November, with the idea being to find some of those books that have gone out of print that we absolutely love and that we love recommending and that we think other bookshops would enjoy recommending as well, and acquiring the rights to them and bringing them back with beautiful covers. So we published two last year, The Shirley, which is a classic Australian novel from the 50s that had gone out of print, or never been printed in England actually. It's a Penguin classic in Australia, but it's a wonderful story. And then The Next Step in the Dance by Tim Gautreaux, and Louisiana author. So at the end of October 2015, we're bringing out two more. One is a Patrick Susskind novel, the chap who wrote Perfume, and he wrote this beautiful, beautiful coming-of-age novella, and it is called The Story of Mr. Sommer, and it's illustrated by Sompe, and it's just such a brilliant, it's got a dark twist, but it's a brilliant, very funny at times story of growing up in Germany. And the last one that we're doing is for this year is Tepper Isn't Going Out. So that's where the Tepper there is the Tepper from our name, Fox Finch and Tepper. It's a novel by Calvin Trillin, who's an American humorist. And it's a novel about a guy who, when he finds the perfect car park space in Manhattan, he just sits and enjoys it. In fact, he actively goes out and finds a space, and he sits and he reads his newspaper, and he uses the full length of his metered time. And he has a great appreciation for the calm and positive benefits of a great parking space. But gradually people start to think there's something more to it than just a guy enjoying the solitude of his car and a bit of reading time. So I think one of my favourite memories is we did an event with Alexandra Fuller. And she'd written this memoir called Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight, about her childhood in Africa. And at our events we just recently introduced music into the event. So we had 3 local musicians who formed the Bookshop band, and this was one of the first songs that they wrote. They wrote songs inspired, they still do write songs inspired by the guest author. And they wrote a song inspired by that book, and it actually had the refrain, Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight. So the evening always begins with the band playing their song and the author stands and watches, and we'd seen maybe the first 3 or 4 events before the authors really enjoyed it, and it was interesting to see their reactions. But this was the first time it had been about a memoir rather than about a novel. So basically Alexandra was just in floods of tears because they were written this song inspired by a moment from her childhood where she'd been left out, and it was very scary, and she was left out with the cattle at night, and they wrote this song, and it just sort of brought it all back to her, and in a good way. She was in floods of tears, but it was so emotional. So I was about to then have to go on and interview Alexandra, but she was in such a teary mess that we had to kind of give it 5 minutes for everyone to calm down. My personal favourite book of all time is I'm going to say Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Just love the setting and the moment in history and the way it describes people striving against all the odds and the triumph of the human spirit against almost anything it can throw at him. So in terms of all time, that's, if I have to pick one, that's the one I always pick. Most beautiful book I own. So because I'm a John Steinbeck fan, I have a beautiful Czech edition of a book, a John Steinbeck book called, his book Tortilla Flat, but I think it's called Tortilla Plán in Czech. So I used to live in Prague years ago, and I have it and I bought it. It's one I bought exclusively for how beautiful the cover is, and I don't speak enough Czech to read John Steinbeck by a long way, but so that is one I own purely for the look of it. I'd invite, if I could have done, I would have invited Patrick Leigh Fermor, the great travel writer, because I've read lots of his books and think he's just an incredible that he could engage with anyone from a peasant right up to aristocracy. So hopefully he would have filled the gaps of the conversation if I've been too awestruck. And just because he led an incredible life, travelled the world on foot, became a war hero, and just met and hung out with so many interesting people, and he was basically a polymath, so yeah, I'd invite him. I'm going to imagine an amalgam of all of us who work at Mr. B's, because as we're a bit longer in the tooth now as a shop, my day is very different to how it was at the beginning. But for us, we open up the doors, we get all the place set for the morning and get the coffee on and that kind of thing, and then usually you get quite a lot of people coming in for orders early on in the day. They've maybe read reviews and what have you, so you're talking to your customers around the counter. We do our reading spas, which is like a consultation service that we do, and we usually have 3 or 4 of those every day, and the first one will be about 10:30, so one of us will be going upstairs with a customer, talking to them one-on-one while they eat cake and drink tea about what they like reading, and so that each of those lasts an hour, hour and a half, so those are dotted throughout the day. Lunchtimes, always very busy with people rushing in around the lunch breaks to pick up books. So that's kind of how the rhythm of the day from the customer's perspectives go, but then there's all sorts of stuff going in. One of my colleagues is going to be checking in new books every day and sorting them all out for shelving. Another colleague might be sending books out, maybe some packaging books to go here, there and everywhere to customers, to suppliers, and then there's a lot of random stuff. A lot of random stuff goes on, which is where all the fun is. The emails will come in for opportunities to work on an event in the community somewhere, or to, I don't know, to be asked questions about what the day of a bookseller holds.